Good morning, my rogue readers. My name is Erin Rogoff, and welcome back to my booktube channel, where today we will be discussing 13 books that I have read so you do not have to. We have all heard about book recommendations, but have we heard about book unrecommendations? That is where you read a book that is so bad that you would never recommend it to anyone, and I have read more than my fair share. However, I do not keep books that I do not like, so out of the 500 in my room, these are the 500 that I like most. Also, they are books that I have not read yet, but plan to, so I'm planning to get around to reading them eventually. But anyway, that's beside the point. The first book that I have read, so you do not have to, is The Innocent Mage by Karen Miller. It is a completely boring book, with a climax that happens on the final page, so you get 600 pages of nothing, and then one page of, oh my gosh, they're dead. And it is a cliffhanger ending, literally, but it was so highly disappointing. And I could have spent time reading another 600 plus page book instead of this literary tragedy. So I apologize, Karen Miller, if I am insulting you, but I would not recommend your book to any of my friends. My apologies. The next book that I would never recommend to anyone is The Goblin Necromancer by Aubrey Law. It is a novel with a concept that I didn't quite get, and I wanted the book to be so much more than it already was, instead of just another letdown. And it was really upsetting to me, just because I love the fantasy genre. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Game of Thrones, Dungeons and Dragons. I love all of that. But The Goblin Necromancer, I thought, hey, this is an interesting POV sort of novel, and no. 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 So that was a really boring letdown book, to say the least. And then another book that was absolutely horrible was 30 Sunsets by Christine Hurley DeRiso. I couldn't even finish the book, it was so bad, because the drama was just too much for me, and it wasn't the type of drama that I necessarily like. So the one character who pissed me off more than anyone else was the mother/grandmother character. She tried to get her son to give up his unborn child to friends from church, because she didn't want to be a grandma, she didn't want her son to be a dad, she didn't necessarily approve of the son's girlfriend, and it just made my skin crawl and my blood boil, and it was not fun at all. I found the mom to be extremely selfish and an all-around horrible character, and yes, this novel does have some controversy attached to it, because the topic of abortion is never mentioned, and a lot of pro-choicers hate this book because abortion is never mentioned. But if you know me, I am pro-life 100%, and I don't want to get into it. In 30 Sunsets, my anxiety for the protection of this baby was just skyrocketing higher than Mount Everest, so I literally couldn't finish the book. My hands were shaking when the mom's character was introduced, and the way she was acting, it was so immature. Her son had more maturity than she did, and I'm not saying that pro-choicers are immature, it's just, I did not enjoy 30 Sunsets, even though I am pro-life. Moving on to a highly different subject. Double the Pleasure by Candice Mullen is a horrible novel. It is completely forgettable, and I wasted my time reading that novel, even though I read it in one day. If you want to read something spicy or physically romantic, then read something by Red Phoenix or E.L. James. Do not waste your time with a Candice Mullen novel. I am sorry. Do you ever read a fantastic crime fiction novel or something to the effect of a John Grisham novel? I am a huge fan of John Grisham, and I found this one free book of his on my Kindle, and I'm like, hey, I didn't read this one yet. So I read The Tumor by John Grisham. And I hoped it would be something like his other books, like The Firm, but it was just another letdown, and I will be saying that for basically every single novel on this list. Anyway, I wanted The Tumor to be something intriguing, like his other books, not a non-fictional what could have happened to this guy with a tumor plot, because I'm not saying that tumors are good, but this book was seriously not what I thought it would be. So that's my only complaint. Come to think of it, another really weird book was Falls the Shadow by Skip Horak, and it was a book that I did not understand, did not like, and I did not feel it was worth the read after I finally finished it. And all I have to say is, all in all, do not read this book. That's the simplest thing I can explain. That's the only thing that I can recommend. I recommend you do not read this book or recommend it to your friends. I might get a little bit of hate for this next unrecommendation, but do not read Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. I read the series, and book Katniss and movie Katniss seemed like two entirely different people. And I preferred the movies to the books. Oh my god, what a shocker, really. I didn't like the ending of the books to be plain and simple, and oh my god, Peeta lost his leg. Why wasn't that in the movies? Going with the dystopian romance feel, I would not recommend you read The Elite by Kiera Cass because I loathed Celeste and King Clarkson. Well, Celeste before I found out that she wasn't really all antagonistic, but King Clarkson is still absolutely horrible. I hate him. I was not crying when his character faced a fate. I'll just say that. The next book was kind of a WTF novel. It's called The Shelter by Suni Mistwalker, and it was definitely a WTF did I just read sort of novel that made me squirm in my chair, that it was so uncomfortable I couldn't even sit right just because I was so creeped out by this book. It's not a normal novel for normal people, all things considered. And the girl in the story, she's like, what, 8, 10, 12 years old? She was doing things that weren't necessarily appropriate for kids, if you know what I mean. So if you're like me, that turns your stomach and makes you want to punch people. So if you want a restful night without the dystopian craze, do not read The Shelter by Suni Mistwalker. Hotel Z by A.C. Hutchinson is one of the weirdest books I think I have ever read. Why is that? Zombie hookers. That's all I have to say. I read this book on Halloween night, and it was very strange. It's called Madeline, and the author is Craig McGray, and it is an absolutely horrible Omen retelling about the daughter of Satan, whose name is Madeline. So unless you like Omen retellings or something that you need to read on Halloween night, I don't recommend anyone ever reads this book. I really do not want to get hate for this next unrecommendation, but do not read Summer Heat by Harper Bliss. I do enjoy the occasional LGBTQ novel, but this is one that I just didn't like. To note, I should say, there are other LGBTQ books that I do like. If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo, They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera, and One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. Take no offense, people, this book, Summer Heat, was just not for me. And the final book on this list is My Secret by Lydia Bella. It is a book I read once and reread once. But it is still a book that I do not like at all. I thought, okay, this is Olympic stuff, that's really awesome, and it is not for the younger crowds. Take my word on this, and trust me on this, this is not a book that you would want to read almost ever. So, if you have enjoyed this book unrecommendation video, please like and subscribe to my channel to get more videos like this. Turn those notifications on, and have a great day reading, everyone. And do not recommend these books to any of your friends.